All right. Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Miss Wilcott.
Here.
Mr. Harwell. Mr. Respento.
Here.
Mr. Armstead.
Here.
Mr. Broadhead.
Here.
Miss Andress.
Here.
Mr. Cronteras.
Here.
And Mr. Roberts.
Here. Thank you. Our packets this month included some draft minutes from last month, June of 2022. Everyone have a chance to review those, any concerns, proposed changes, et cetera? It looked good to me. If there are no concerns, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded? You made the motion.
Yes, sir.
And who seconded?
Mr. Broadhead.
Thank
Okay,
you.
and I'll just
Thank you.
do it by affirmation, I guess. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next, communications reports from the chairman and vice chairman. Mr. Wilson, do you have any?
Have none.
And I have none as the chairman. All right, we're going to next go to old business. We have only one case on our docket today. It's carried over from last June. The case number is FD 22-06-02. The development is Belmont Family Properties LLC. My understanding, and I was not here last month, but my understanding was that at the meeting last month when this case was called, there's some questions directed to the city regarding some zoning issues for this property and the permitted use for the property. Who from the city wants to address Mr. Smith, Ms. Williams? I was just mentioning that last month that when this case was called, there's some questions raised about some zoning issues. Where do we stand on that?
Yeah, so there was a question from a neighbor about the current use being a non-conforming use, and if the planning commission was allowed to approve a development plan in an existing non-conforming use. Since then, the staff issued our opinion that the current use was conforming to the intent of the GERD district. And so that's where we are.
Okay, and again, I wasn't here last month. Fred, did we close out I guess we need to rehear the case since we carried it over.
Right. It was publicly announced that this case would be continued till today's meeting, so.
Okay, who is presenting today on behalf of the applicant?
And I'll sign in too. Ben Watson, Live Oak Engineering, representing Belmont Family Properties, which doing business as Big One Motorsports.
Okay, I know you did a presentation last month. You could kind of give a summary of what you're requesting in terms of the development plan.
Yes, sir. A quick synopsis of what we're trying to accomplish is basically they have run out of showroom space. And so they're requesting to add 20-foot by the 200-foot length of the building, additional building to the front, 4,000 square feet. And then that would allow them to obviously as well decorate the facade a whole lot better and make it much more visually appealing to the street. They do not expect this will increase foot traffic. This is truly they have big toys take up space. They need to spread their big toys out so you can walk around a little better. That's all that is the intent of their thing, and then also to allow them to beautify the facade too. I mean, if they're going to spend the money to make this thing a little better on the front, they want to show it off right. And so this being GERD, it requires a master plan approval, so that's why we're here trying to create a plan such that we meet the GERD requirements, but also allow us to add a little square footage to the building.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public meeting. If anyone here from the public would like to speak to the case, now's your time to come forward. I don't see anyone in the crowd today, so we'll close the public portion. And if the members of the commission have any questions, I'll ask you now.
Thank you.
Mr. Watson, what year did you guys close the Valley Avenue location as far as sales?
The email I received was 2013, was when they moved into this building.
In terms of the products being sold, the intention, I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is to continue to sell the same types of.
The inventory will not change, the use will not change. It is all internal sales too. There is no, it's not a external lot, so this, whatever they do sell is inside those walls. They're not trying to create any sort of outdoor storage, any sort of outdoor sale space. Everything is contained inside that building to where they, and it's really, same thing, it's really not as much turnover on inventory as it is trying to showroom space to get custom orders to then bring that onto the floor, so.
So the drawings, the drawing that was up earlier with the front facade and kind of the people walking around, it looks like there's some motorcycles outside. Is that, and I think what you're describing to me is all the motorcycles will be.
Yes, that is, the architect was, that was an early rendering of the facade. That was for more, but yes, for y'all's standpoint, yes, no, there's not, and as you can tell in the picture, but we're not, again, that is a fence that's closed off to pedestrian, to traffic. All sales and entrance parking is on the, in the picture on the back side of that fence. So that fence is inside there. That is not for customers.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question, a legal interpretation? By approving this development plan, they would be prohibited from selling out in the parking lot, right? I mean, if what they put before us does not include sales in the parking lot, does that in and of itself preclude them from doing that? If we were to approve, am I making sense? I'm trying to, think of it in terms of a rezoning where someone proffers something, by approving the development plan as is, does that preclude them from having any, he's standing before us telling us he's not gonna be selling anything in the parking lot. Does that development plan ensure that? I guess is what I'm asking.
I'm just looking at the actual,
There's nothing on the plan that calls that outdoor storage.
Yeah.
And I would take you one step further. They're not authorized to have outdoor sales today. So if they're having outdoor sales today, that is a code violation, just like if they do outdoor sales when this plan is implemented. That does not change in my, I think from even defending them, they have to follow code today, which would be no outdoor sales.
Mr. Watson, one of the issues that some of us are struggling with is the extension of a non-conforming use. And I'll speak for myself in saying that the motor vehicle sales is a non-conforming use for Big Number One currently. And as I agreed with the resident who pointed out at the prior meeting that we would be extending a non-conforming use, and therefore, we're not permitted to do that. I'm gonna just go from a couple of things with your permission, Mr.
Sure.
Freeman, Mr. Robertson. The general use requirements specify no land or structure may be used except for a purpose permitted in the district in which it is located. Motor vehicle sales are specifically permitted in C3. GERD does not list C3. GERD does list C1. And in a prior revision of GERD, the motor vehicle sales was not included. Parts sales was included. And it's my belief personally that the intent in that revision was to continue no motor vehicle sales in GERD. I'm saying that to explain my review of the zoning book. I'd also just like to mention, I'd love for big number one to find a way for this to work. I don't know how that's gonna happen tonight with this vote from me personally, but I just wanted to go on record as saying that. But I appreciate what you guys do, and I like what you do. I just don't think that I can vote favorably.
Can I ask, you said something about custom orders a second ago. When you say showroom, the vehicles that are in the building, are those vehicles for sale, or are they to show only and then they would order anything that was?
They are for sale, but they don't have a full stock of inventory, so most of the things that are purchased in there are more to be delivered later. I mean, a lot of their vehicles are, their inventory, they only have one of. So, yes, there is a situation you could drive it off the lot, but for the most part, that's not the intent. The intent is for them to have something else brought in. The intent is not for you to, again, those are display models. By definition, however, that is not, obviously, that's not an only situation, but that is the preferred method. Just because, again, they're not trying to swap inventory out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Brady, does that change any of your thought on whether or not it would be?
No, because it's still motor vehicle sales. It's still what it is.
Yeah.
By definition, the issue is that there's only one district that specifies not permitted use. Everything else within the zoning book is permitted use. And in my view, if there were something ambiguous, like nowhere in the zoning book is listed the, inner tube that comes behind the boat,
Well,
then I could see that being.
and it is explicit in motor sales. It is not motor vehicles. It's not cars. It's not automobiles. It specifies. I see what you're saying. It specifies
Motor vehicle sales.
motor, so anything, so which means the 60 horsepower kid's dirt bike is by definition a motor vehicle. I understand.
But so is the YZF R1, right? So.
Agreed. And so is the C2. I hear your concerns. I don't want to diminish that.
And part of this is, in my view, maybe what needs to happen is an appeal for GERD to change. Not that we make this happen for then having other concerns wherein we've, first of all, violated the zoning book. And then secondly, then somebody else might expect us to violate the zoning book. And that's, I think, not our intent.
No. So, okay.
That's a good question. Does our vote tonight change anything that they're doing currently? That doesn't retroactively change anything that they're doing currently? By saying to them, in essence, what you're doing is against the ordinance, does that change anything?
It's an existing non-conforming use,
So that
but
stays-
it's,
okay.
I think that's,
Yeah.
there's no
They come back to
no
renew their
impact.
business license, no
You can keep
issues.
on going, keep on going.
Okay.
You've already got it.
So the process here, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, and I very likely am, but if, first of all, the vote here, if it's approved, obviously, that's a moot point. If it's denied by this board, there could be an appeal if taken to the BZA for the Board of Zoning Adjustments to look at the definitions under GERD, look at the use that's being proposed to see if that board agrees with the assessment of the regulations, the code that is. So, you know, there are means of, at least the way I understand, means of appeal if in the case of an adverse vote today.
So I could, okay. Because then the other, yes, otherwise I've got to then ask y'all to either rewrite your code or come back before a rezoning request to try to make it C3, like what's also on that side of the street.
Right, which would be a different case altogether.
Correct, no,
Right,
understand completely,
right.
because, obviously, I prefer not to do that route, but I understand it's y'all's discretion, and I'll respect whatever y'all come to a conclusion. Please understand that. I just, like I said, that's, if y'all feel like it's not conforming, I understand that. I would like to disagree, but that's, again, that's my stance, and I guess a stance from the city staff of when the building permit was, when the business license was issued, when GERD was in effect. So at some point in time when the business license was issued, I guess they thought that was a conforming use at the time. So I don't know when the rules were modified. I'll be explicit on that. But so that's the stance I'd like to take, is that it was, when they moved in, they were doing what they thought was a conforming use, and so we're trying to continue that conforming use.
Any other questions from the commission members? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Considering you need an affirmative motion either way, move to approve FD 220602.
Second.
Okay. All right. Ms. Wilcott? No. Mr. Respento?
No.
Mr. Armstead?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
No.
Ms. Andress?
No.
Mr. Cronteras? No. Mr. Broadhead?
No.
And Mr. Roberts?
No, and I'll just state for the record, the reason I'm voting that way is I agree with Mr. Wilson's assessment, just from a technical reading of the zoning regulations. I can't squeeze what's being requested into the permitted uses.
Understand.
Okay. All right, so your case does not pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I include that in my VV request?
All right, I don't think we have anything else on our agenda tonight. I guess all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.